Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Have you ever sat alone and wondered why your heart feels heavy, even on days when everything around you seems normal? Why sadness hits you at random moments? Why your chest tightens even when you're trying your best to be okay? Sometimes the quietest battles are the ones happening inside our own hearts. Battles no one else sees, but Allah sees them all. There are habits, invisible at first, that slowly drain the light from the heart. And you don't realize it until one day you wake up feeling distant from yourself, from others, and most painfully from Allah. And in that distance, you begin to question, what's happening to me? Why does my heart feel so different? Allah, in His infinite mercy, doesn't expose your weaknesses to humiliate you. He exposes them to heal you. He allows your heart to feel empty so you finally notice the habits that have been quietly destroying it. Because sometimes emptiness is the mercy that leads you back to Him. Allah says that it is only in His remembrance that hearts find rest. But the heart can't rest when it's drowning in silent poisons. When we keep pretending we're okay while our Iman is slowly suffocating. When we carry grudges that weigh heavier than mountains. When we compare our lives to others and forget the story Allah wrote just for us. When we indulge in sins that seem harmless but little by little make the heart numb. And maybe your heart has been hurting for a long time. Maybe you've prayed and cried and waited and nothing changed. Maybe you're exhausted from carrying burdens that no one knows about. And you wonder, where is Allah's help? When will the pain ease? Remember, the Prophet taught us that Allah is closest when your heart is breaking. Sabr isn't pretending not to feel pain. Sabr is feeling it, crying through it, hurting inside, and still saying, Ya Allah, I trust you. This is what Sabr truly means. You don't understand His plan yet, but you choose Him anyway. Sometimes Allah delays something because your heart isn't ready. Sometimes He removes people because they were damaging your soul. Sometimes He closes doors because what you wanted wasn't love. It was a distraction from Him. And what you think is heartbreak is actually Allah pulling you back to the only one who loves you unconditionally. The human heart was never designed to carry unlimited pain. It was designed to return again and again to the one who created it. So every day, give your heart what it was created for. Turn back to Allah even if you feel unworthy. Forgive others even if they never apologize. Stop comparing your life to what Allah gave someone else. And guard your soul from the small sins that slowly steal your light. Because the truth is, the heart doesn't break from hardship. It breaks when it forgets Allah, and it heals the very moment it remembers Him. May Allah purify your heart, heal your wounds, fill your soul with peace, and make you among those who return to Him with a heart that is whole, soft, and overflowing with Iman. Ameen. The heart is not just a physical organ beating in your chest. In Islam, it is the spiritual center of your entire being. It's where Iman settles, where your intentions form, where sincerity grows, and where your connection with Allah either strengthens or weakens. When the heart is healthy, everything else in your life aligns with clarity and purpose. Your thoughts become cleaner, your decisions become wiser, and your soul feels lighter. But when the heart becomes clouded, when it absorbs too many sins, too much pain, too much distraction, it begins to affect every part of who you are. This is why the Prophet said that there is a piece of flesh in the body, which, if purified, the whole body is purified. And if corrupted, the whole body becomes corrupted. That piece is the heart. Your spiritual journey doesn't begin with your actions, it begins with what settles inside your chest. A single negative habit can quietly drain the strength of your Iman. A moment of heedlessness can become a pattern. A small sin repeated can create a barrier between you and the peace you seek. When the heart is harmed, you notice it in your prayer, in your focus, in your patience, and even in your relationships. You feel more irritable, more lost, more disconnected, because the heart is the root of spiritual life. Allah honors the heart so much that He looks at your intentions before your deeds. He heals your heart before He changes your situation. He protects your heart even when you don't realize it. That's why guarding your heart is one of the most important acts of worship. Every moment you spend remembering Allah, every sin you resist, every feeling you surrender to Him, all of it strengthens the heart and restores the Iman that gives your entire life meaning. Allah protects the believer's heart in ways far deeper and gentler than we often realize. Sometimes we think protection only comes in the form of ease, blessings, or visible comfort, but Allah's protection is far more profound. He guards the heart through reminders that arrive at the exact moment you need them, a verse you read randomly, a khutbah you stumble upon, a friend's unexpected advice, or even a painful situation that wakes you up spiritually. These are not coincidences, they are signs that Allah is actively watching over you, guiding you back to what softens and strengthens your heart. There are times Allah protects you by removing people from your life, even when you begged for them to stay. He protects you by closing doors you were convinced were good for you. He protects you through disappointments that break your plans but save your soul. You might see loss, but Allah sees a heart that needs to be guarded from something you cannot understand yet. His protection is not always what you want, but it is always what you need. Allah also protects the believer's heart through trials. These hardships, though heavy, strip away the distractions that keep you distant. They force you to turn back to Him, to rely on Him, to seek comfort in His words. Every tear you shed becomes a purifier. Every frustration becomes a reminder that there is no refuge except with Him. The heart becomes softer, more sincere, more aware of its dependence on Allah. Even when you slip into sin, Allah protects you by making you feel guilt. That tug in your chest, that discomfort after doing wrong, that is a divine mercy. It means your heart is still alive. It means Allah hasn't abandoned you. His protection is constant, subtle, and full of love, guiding your heart back to Him again and again. Allah, in His infinite mercy, never leaves a believer's heart unattended. Even when you feel distant or spiritually numb, Allah is guiding you back through subtle signs, reminders, and moments of discomfort meant to awaken you. The heart is precious to Him because it is the vessel of Iman, and Allah protects it in ways why. Oh, you sometimes don't even recognize. A sudden feeling of guilt after a mistake isn't a burden, it's a gift. A quiet sadness after missing a prayer is not a punishment, it's a gentle nudge from Allah, inviting you to return. When your heart feels unsettled after indulging in something sinful or harmful, that restlessness is protection. It is Allah preventing your heart from becoming fully attached to what could destroy it. Sometimes Allah protects your heart through difficulties. A door closing, a plan failing, a relationship ending. These aren't random hardships. These are shields. Allah removes things that would corrupt your heart even if in the moment it feels like loss. You may not understand why something was taken from you, but Allah knows what your heart cannot carry. And sometimes He protects you by delaying your wishes, because receiving something too soon might damage the purity of your intentions. Patience becomes a protective cloak that keeps your heart aligned with His timing, not your own. Even the verses of the Qur'an you randomly hear, the reminders you stumble upon, the tears that come out of nowhere during dua, these are not coincidences. They are moments crafted by Allah to soften, revive, and shield your heart. His protection is not always loud. Often, it is the quiet pull you feel toward goodness after drifting too far. Every believer is held by divine care, even when they cannot see it. Allah's mercy surrounds your heart long before you realize it. Ignoring your spiritual emptiness is one of the most damaging habits for the heart, because the disease you don't acknowledge becomes the disease you live with. Many people walk through life pretending to be fine, while their soul is quietly starving. They distract themselves with noise, work, entertainment, or people just to avoid the silence in which their heart's pain becomes audible. But the heart can ouse, and the heart remembers. When it is distant from Allah, it begins to ache in ways nothing else can soothe. That heaviness, that sadness you can't explain, that restlessness that comes even when everything is normal, these are signs that the heart is craving spiritual nourishment. Ignoring these signals only deepens the emptiness. The more you delay addressing your spiritual hunger, the more your heart becomes used to darkness. You stop feeling guilt for sins. You stop feeling joy in worship. You stop feeling the sweetness of Iman. This numbness doesn't happen overnight. It forms gradually, one ignored feeling at a time. And because it happens quietly, you think you're okay, when in reality your heart is slowly losing its light. The dangerous part is that people often seek worldly solutions for spiritual pain. They assume something is wrong with their life, their relationships, or their circumstances when the real issue is the disconnect from Allah. The heart is designed to remember Him. So when that remembrance fades, everything else feels empty. You can change your environment, your routine, even the people around you, but if you don't revive your heart, nothing external will fix the internal void. Healing begins the moment you stop pretending and admit, my heart needs Allah. That honesty itself is the first step to revival. It opens the door for dua, for reflection, for prayer, and ultimately for Allah's mercy to pour into your life again. Allah's mercy towards the believer's heart is far more tender than we can ever comprehend. Often we assume divine protection means shielding us from hardship, sadness, or heartbreak. But Allah protects the heart in deeper, quieter, and more transformative ways. He sends reminders at the exact moment we need them. A verse you randomly hear, a khutbah that suddenly feels personal, a conversation that awakens something. Inside you. These are not coincidences. These are Allah's subtle ways of saying, come back to me before this world overwhelms you. Sometimes He protects your heart by pulling you away from what harms your Iman, even if you wanted it desperately. You may lose a person, an opportunity, or a dream and feel like your heart is breaking, but in reality, your heart is being saved. What you consider loss may actually be divine protection. Allah prevents certain things from settling in your life because they would have corrupted your soul or distanced you from Him. He also protects your heart through trials. A difficulty might feel heavy, but it's shaping you into someone stronger, purer, and more connected to Allah. Trials strip away pride, cleanse sins, and bring you back to your knees where true healing begins. When your heart feels tight or restless, it is not a sign of abandonment, but a sign of divine attention. Allah is nudging you, reminding you, realigning you. Every spiritual discomfort is a whisper from Allah. Your heart needs me. And every moment you respond to that whisper is a moment your heart is being guarded, softened, and renewed by the one who knows it better than you ever will. One of the most dangerous habits that quietly destroys the heart is ignoring your spiritual emptiness and pretending you're fine. The human heart is created to feel, to reflect, and to seek Allah. But when you keep pushing your emotions aside, convincing yourself that nothing is wrong, you bury wounds that desperately need healing. Many people distract themselves with work, entertainment, friendships, or worldly goals, hoping the emptiness will disappear on its own. But emptiness doesn't fade by ignoring it, it deepens. There comes a point where your prayer feels mechanical. Your dua feels distant. Your worship feels heavy. Instead of pausing and asking, why is my here? Struggling? Many people keep going on autopilot. This pretending is dangerous because it blinds you to the real issues. You overlook the sins that have accumulated. You ignore the emotional burdens you never surrendered to Allah. You suppress the guilt, the sadness, the anxiety, all of which are meant to bring you closer to Him, not drown you. Spiritual emptiness is a sign, not a failure. It's Allah's way of telling you that your heart needs nourishment, that you've been giving too much of yourself to the world and too little to the one who created you. When you ignore this call, the heart slowly weakens. You lose joy in worship, peace in remembrance, and clarity in decision-making. You become spiritually numb. The cure begins when you stop pretending. When you finally say, Ya Allah, I am not okay, I need you. That moment of honesty opens the door to healing. Allah loves a heart that admits its need for Him. Ignoring emptiness distances you from Him, but acknowledging it brings you back into His mercy, where true strength and peace are found. Holding on to grudges is one of the most silent yet powerful poisons that can destroy the heart. You may think the anger you hold is justified. You may believe the hurt someone caused you gives you the right to carry bitterness, but the heart was never designed to hold hate. Every grudge, every resentment, every unhealed wound becomes a weight pressing down on your soul, dimming the light of Iman. You feel the heaviness in your chest, the tightness in your thoughts, the loss of calmness in your prayer. This is not because of what they did to you, but because of what the grudge is doing inside you. When you refuse to forgive, you trap yourself in the very pain you're trying to escape. You replay the hurt again and again until it becomes part of your identity. And slowly, without realizing it, the heart hardens. It becomes less open to love, less receptive to guidance, and less able to feel the sweetness of worship. The Prophet taught that forgiveness is not for the other person. It is for your own spiritual purity. When you forgive, you are not saying what happened was okay. You are saying, I refuse to let this pain control my heart. Forgiving does not mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean trusting the person again. It means handing the weight of the hurt to Allah and freeing your heart from carrying it. Holding a grudge is like drinking poison, hoping someone else gets sick. You only damage yourself. Mercy softens the heart, and forgiveness is the key to unlocking that mercy. When you let go for the sake of Allah, He replaces the bitterness inside you with peace, light, and emotional freedom. That is when the heart can finally breathe again. Allah protects the believer's heart in ways that are incredibly subtle, often unnoticed in the moment, but deeply transformative over time. Sometimes you think a hardship entered your life to break you, but in reality, it arrived to shield your heart from something far more damaging. Allah places you in moments of discomfort not to harm you, but to redirect you. A delay you didn't want, a person who walked away, an opportunity that slipped out of your hands, these are not signs of rejection. These are signs of divine protection. The heart is fragile, constantly influenced by emotions, desires, and worries. Allah knows that even the smallest spiritual crack can grow into something much bigger, so He intervenes before you even notice the danger. He gives you signs, reminders, and wake-up calls to help you realign. Sometimes He lets you feel a hint of emptiness, so you realize your heart has been feeding on the wrong things. Sometimes He pulls you away from people whose presence slowly poisons your soul. Other times He strengthens your heart through trials, so it becomes capable of carrying blessings you're destined to receive. The believer often misunderstands protection as loss, but Allah's protection is sometimes disguised as heartbreak, confusion, or delay. And when the heart finally understands what it was saved from, gratitude replaces the pain. Allah's love for His believer is so deep that He never lets the heart break without purpose. He never allows a wound without placing healing within it. His protection is constant, even in silence, guiding your heart back to a place of purity, clarity, and closeness to Him. One of the most destructive habits for the heart is pretending you're spiritually fine when deep down you feel empty. Many people walk through life carrying silent exhaustion, numbing their hearts with distractions, routine, and noise instead of facing the truth. The heart whispers its pain through restless thoughts, lack of focus in prayer, emotional instability, and sudden waves of sadness. But because these signs are subtle, a person convinces themselves that everything is normal. This denial is dangerous because the heart, unlike the body, doesn't scream when it's hurt. It fades. It becomes less sensitive to sin, less responsive to reminders, less moved by the Quran. You start praying without feeling, listening without absorbing, living without truly being alive. Ignoring your spiritual emptiness makes you walk further away from the source of peace while believing everything is under control. The heart begins to crave what cannot fill it, searching for comfort in worldly things, temporary people, and empty achievements. The more you ignore the inner hunger, the more distant you become from Allah without even realizing it. True healing begins the moment you admit your heart is thirsty. When you finally pause long enough to feel the void within, that's when you turn back to Allah. Sincerity. The heart was created to be nourished by remembrance, purified by repentance, and softened by dua. Ignoring its needs only deepens the wounds. Acknowledging them is the first step towards spiritual revival. The heart doesn't need perfection. It needs honesty. Allah heals the hearts that admit they are broken. Holding on to grudges is one of the most silent, yet powerful destroyers of the heart. Anger and resentment don't stay on the surface. They sink deep into the soul, hardening it slowly. When someone hurts you, the pain is real. Islam never denies that. But when you replay the hurt again and again, when you cling to the memory of betrayal, when you allow bitterness to define your responses, your heart becomes a prison of your own emotions. The person who wronged you continues living freely while you remain stuck in the moment of pain. Grudges turn into heavy chains that follow you into your prayers, your relationships, and your moments of joy. They steal your peace without permission. The heart cannot hold on to hate and expect to feel the sweetness of Iman at the same time. Forgiveness in Islam does not mean pretending the hurt never happened. It means releasing the emotional burden so it no longer owns you. Allah rewards forgiveness with elevation, calmness, and light. When you let go, you're not excusing their behavior. You're choosing your own peace over your own anger. Resentment blocks your dua, distracts your mind, and interrupts your spiritual growth. It pushes you away from the softness Allah loves to see in His servants. Hearts are not destroyed by the wound, but by the unwillingness to heal. When you forgive for Allah's sake, your soul breathes again. Your chest expands with relief. Your heart regains its softness. And Allah replaces your pain with a tranquility that no apology could ever give. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is the courage. 2. Let Allah be the judge while you reclaim your peace. Comparing your life to others is a quiet habit that slowly eats away at your contentment. In a world where everyone showcases their highlight moments, it becomes easy to feel like you're falling behind. You see someone else's blessings and start questioning your own journey. You begin to wonder why Allah wrote ease for others and test for you, why someone else gets what you've been praying for, why their life seems simple while yours feels heavy. These comparisons create internal storms, jealousy, self-doubt, frustration. Your heart starts losing gratitude, and gratitude is the very oxygen the heart needs to stay alive. When you compare, you forget that Allah customizes every person's path with precision. What they have might not bring you peace, and what you have might be the very thing protecting your Iman. Comparison blinds you to your own blessings. It shifts your focus from what Allah has given to what He has withheld. But Allah never withholds except with wisdom. Every delay, every limitation, every unanswered prayer is perfectly timed for your spiritual growth. Others are not ahead of you, they are simply walking a different road. And sometimes the people you envy are carrying battles you can't see. When the heart stops comparing, it finally sees that Allah has been generous all along. True contentment comes when you look at what others have and whisper, Alhamdulillah, not out of formality, but from sincerity. Your journey is not late, your blessings are not small, and your story is not flawed. It is simply different, written by the one who knows exactly what your heart needs to reach Him. Allah protects the believer's heart in ways so gentle and subtle that we often don't recognize His mercy until much later. Sometimes you feel a sudden discomfort in your soul, a heaviness that you can explain. That is Allah reminding you that your heart needs attention. Other times, you are pulled away from a person, an environment, or a habit you thought you needed, and only when you look back do you realize Allah was shielding your heart from something that would have harmed your Iman. He guards you not only from external dangers, but from internal decline. When your heart begins to drift, when laziness creeps into your worship, when dunya becomes too loud, Allah sends you reminders, a verse, a khutbah, a difficulty, a moment of loneliness, a sudden realization. These aren't punishments, they're divine interventions. Allah protects your heart by giving you moments of clarity, by softening your soul through trials, and by closing doors that you beg to remain open. He places people in your life who guide you back to Him and removes those who would pull you away. Sometimes His protection feels like loss, but it is actually preservation. He knows how fragile the heart is, how quickly it can be influenced, and how deeply it affects your entire spiritual state. So He guards it, nurtures it, and gently redirects it when it strays. When you feel a restlessness inside you, when your sin begins to weigh heavily, when a reminder strikes your heart unexpectedly, understand that this is Allah caring for you. These moments are invitations to return, opportunities to realign your heart with Him. Allah's protection is constant even when you are unawe. Because He knows the heart better than you know yourself. One of the habits that quietly destroys the heart is ignoring your spiritual emptiness and pretending everything is fine. We live in a world where people are encouraged to hide their struggles, to keep moving, to smile, even when they are spiritually drowning. But the heart can't heal from what you refuse to acknowledge. When you feel distant from Allah and you brush it aside, when your salah feels heavy and you convince yourself it's normal, when your faith feels weak and you distract yourself instead of facing it, all of this chips away at the heart. Silence becomes neglect. Neglect becomes numbness. And numbness is one of the most dangerous states for a believer. Spiritual emptiness is not something you can fill with entertainment, people, or achievements. The heart was created to find peace only through Allah's remembrance. And when you deny that emptiness, you deny yourself the chance to heal. Sometimes you feel a void, a lack of purpose, a lack of connection. But instead of turning to Allah, you turn to distractions. You tell yourself you're just tired, just busy, just overwhelmed. But what you're really feeling is a soul longing for its creator. Ignoring that longing makes the heart harder over time. You begin to lose sensitivity to sin. You feel less guilt, less connection, less warmth in worship. Even your happiness feels shallow because the source of true fulfillment, closeness to Allah, is being ignored. Healing begins with honesty. Admit when your heart feels weak. Admit when you're spiritually empty. Admit when you've drifted too far. The moment you acknowledge the emptiness, you open the door for Allah's mercy to fill it. The heart only breaks when it's neglected, and it only heals when it's returned to Allah. Holding on to grudges is one of the subtlest poisons that destroys the heart from within. You may think you've forgotten an old hurt, but the bitterness remains, quietly shaping your emotions, your reactions, and your spiritual state. The heart was never created to carry resentment. It becomes heavier, darker, and more restless with every grudge you hold. And the tragedy is that the person you're hurting the most is not the one you refuse to forgive. It's yourself. Grudges create a spiritual blockage. You may pray, you may seek peace, you may make dua, but if your heart is filled with resentment, the tranquility you seek struggles to settle within. Forgiveness in Islam is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of spiritual maturity. When you forgive, you're not saying what happened was okay. You're saying, I refuse to let this wound define my heart. Allah promises that those who forgive and pardon others will be forgiven by Him, and there is no greater healing than Allah's forgiveness. The Prophet taught us that mercy and softness bring a believer closer to Allah, but grudges harden the heart. They make you suspicious, defensive, and emotionally exhausted. You replay the hurt in your mind, keeping the wound open instead of allowing it to heal. And over time, this pain begins to affect your worship, your gratitude, your relationships, and your peace. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means trusting that Allah knows what happened, and He is the best judge. It means freeing your heart from a burden it was never meant to carry. When you release a grudge, you're not helping the other person, you're freeing yourself. And in that moment of release, your heart becomes soft again, capable of receiving the mercy and tranquility that comes only from Allah. Comparing yourself to others is one of the most damaging habits that quietly weakens the heart. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins with a single thought. Why don't I have hat they have? Then it grows. You compare your success to theirs, your appearance to theirs, your blessings to theirs, even your spiritual progress to theirs. And suddenly, your heart becomes filled with restlessness. Comparison steals contentment and replaces it with silent resentment toward your own life. Allah distributed blessings with perfect wisdom. What He gave someone else was never meant for you, and what He withheld from you was never a mistake. But when comparison becomes a habit, you stop appreciating the story Allah wrote for you. You become blind to your blessings and obsessed with someone else's. It creates envy, insecurity, impatience, and all of these take away the tranquility the heart desperately needs. The heart grows dark not because others have more, but because you no longer see what you have. Gratitude fades, joy fades, even tawakkul becomes weaker because you begin to question Allah's plan. Comparison quietly whispers, your life should look like theirs. But Allah reminds you that success is not measured by what you possess, but by the condition of your heart. Your journey is unique. Your tests, your growth, your timing, all crafted specifically for your soul. When you compare, you erase the beauty of your own path. You ignore the blessings that were tailored for you and chase illusions that were never meant to be yours. The heart thrives when it focuses on gratitude. The more you thank Allah, the more peaceful your heart becomes. The moment you stop comparing and start appreciating, the heaviness lifts. You finally realize that what Allah gave you is exactly what you were meant to have at this moment of your life. Overindulging in sins, even small ones, quietly numbs the heart in ways a person doesn't notice until the damage is already done. Most hearts don't break from one major sin. They weaken from repeated minor habits that seem harmless, but gradually darken the soul. A glance you shouldn't have taken, words you shouldn't have spoken, music that pulls you away from Allah, conversations that don't benefit your Iman. One by one, these choices create a spiritual fog around the heart. And the more you indulge, the less you feel the weight of the sin. The danger is not just the sin itself, but the heart's decreasing sensitivity. When you stop feeling guilt, when wrong starts to feel normal, when worship feels heavy and sin feels easy, this is a sign that the heart is being quietly harmed. The Prophet taught that every sin places a black dot on the heart. If a person repents, the heart is polished. But if they continue, the darkness spreads until the heart becomes sealed. A sealed heart doesn't find joy in prayer. It doesn't cry in dua. It doesn't feel closeness to Allah. It becomes emotionally tired, spiritually empty, and disconnected from what once brought peace. And yet the mercy of Allah is so vast that even after countless mistakes, one sincere moment of repentance can bring life back to the heart. The key is awareness. Notice the habits that pull you away from Allah. Notice the activities that make your Iman weaker. Notice the environment that normalizes sin. Protecting your heart is not about being perfect. It's about being conscious. Every time you choose obedience over desire, your heart grows stronger. Every time you turn away from a sin, even a small one, you return a little closer to Allah. And nothing heals the heart faster than choosing Him over your impulses. Spiritual decline rarely happens overnight. It doesn't announce itself with loud warnings or sudden collapses. It grows quietly, slowly, almost gently, so gently that you don't realize how far your heart has drifted until one day you feel an unfamiliar weight inside you. This is the danger of neglecting the here. It weakens in silence. You begin by missing one prayer, then two. You tell yourself you'll make it up later. You skip a moment of dhikr thinking it's small. You postpone reading Quran until you feel ready. And without noticing, you lose the softness that once brought you closer to Allah. Spiritual heaviness begins as small cracks. You feel less motivated to worship, less connected in your salah, less eager to seek forgiveness, less inspired to do good. Your mind gets cluttered, your emotions feel unstable, and your soul becomes restless. Yet because the change is gradual, you assume you're just tired or busy. But the truth is, the heart is quietly calling for attention, calling for the nourishment it was created for. The heart darkens when it isn't exposed to light, and the light of the heart is dhikr, Qur'an, and sincerity. When these fade, the world feels heavier. Problems seem bigger. Temptations feel stronger. You become more reactive, less patient, more easily hurt. It's not that life suddenly became harder. It's that your heart lost the strength to handle what it once could. But the beauty of Allah's mercy is this: He allows you to feel the heaviness so you can wake up. He lets your heart ache so you return to Him. He lets spiritual emptiness settle so you realize nothing else can fill you. The moment you notice the decline is the moment healing begins. A single, sincere Ya Allah can reopen a door you thought was locked. And one step toward Allah brings His infinite steps toward you. The decline may be silent, but the return can be powerful. The heart was created with a very specific need, the need to remember its Creator. Just as the body weakens without food, the heart darkens without dhikr. Allah tells us that it is only through His remembrance that hearts find rest. Not through people, not through achievements, not through distractions, only Him. This means the calmness you search for in the world can never truly settle inside you unless Allah's name becomes a regular part of your inner life. When a heart is distant from Allah, it becomes vulnerable to every fear, every whisper, every sadness. The smallest problem feels overwhelming. The lightest worry feels heavy. Even blessings lose their sweetness because the soul no longer recognizes who they came from. But when Allah is remembered often, in quiet moments, in pain, in joy, in confusion, something inside you begins to soften. The heart becomes lighter, clearer, more awake. You start seeing life through a different lens. What used to break you now shapes you. What used to scare you now reminds you to rely on Him more. Dhikr isn't just the repetition of words. It's the awakening of the heart. It's reminding your soul that you're not alone, that Allah hears your whispers, sees your struggles, and knows the battles no one else knows about. Remembrance reconnects you to the one who controls everything you fear and everything you hope for. The habit of consistent dhikr protects the heart from anxiety, envy, arrogance, and spiritual emptiness. It becomes a shield against the distractions that numb your Iman. Even a few minutes of sincere remembrance can lift a heaviness that months of worldly solutions couldn't touch. When your heart remembers Allah, it rests. And when it rests, it heals. And when it heals, your entire life falls back into balance. Healing begins the moment you acknowledge that your heart is spiritually thirsty and in desperate need of Allah's mercy. Many people move through life carrying wounds they never speak about, pain they never process, and spiritual emptiness they try to hide, even from themselves. But the soul cannot be healed by distractions, temporary pleasures, or pretending to be strong. The heart heals only when it RNS to the one who created it. Recognizing that you are in need is not a weakness in Islam, it is the beginning of strength. It is the doorway through which Allah's mercy enters. There comes a time when you look at your own heart and realize that something is missing, a peace that used to be there, a softness you once felt, a closeness to Allah that seems distant now. Instead of ignoring that feeling, Islam teaches you to pause and say, Ya Allah, I need you. That simple moment of honesty breaks the first layer of hardness around the heart. It opens space for divine healing to begin. Allah never turns away a servant who returns to Him with sincerity. When you admit your need for Him, you are fulfilling the very purpose of your creation to seek Him, rely on Him, and find comfort in Him. Even your struggles, your guilt, and your weaknesses become pathways that bring you closer to your Lord. Allah's mercy pours abundantly on the heart that feels lost, yet still chooses to call out to Him. No matter how far you feel, no matter how many mistakes you've made, returning to Allah is always possible. Healing does not require perfection. It requires humility. It starts with acknowledging the emptiness and allowing Allah to fill it with light, forgiveness, and tranquility. Tawakkul, or trust in Allah, is not just a concept to recite in words. It is a practice that shapes the very fabric of your heart and mind. When a believer truly embraces tawakkul, they understand that nothing in this world happens without the knowledge and decree of Allah, and that every trial, delay, or hardship is part of a greater wisdom beyond human understanding. Trusting in Allah does not mean passivity. It means acting with effort, planning with intention, and striving sincerely, all while placing the ultimate outcome in His hands. It is a delicate balance between exerting your own will and surrendering to the one who knows best. Many hearts carry anxiety, worry, and fear because they cling too tightly to control, as if life itself can be dictated by human hands alone. Tawakkul teaches the soul that the reins of destiny are in the hands of the most merciful, and that leaning on Him frees you from unnecessary despair. Allah says that if His servants rely upon Him, He will provide for them and guide them in ways they could never imagine. This is a div in promise, not a vague suggestion, that those who place their trust in Him will find relief, clarity, and a quiet strength that the world cannot shake. Practically practicing tawakkul reshapes the heart. When difficulties arrive, you don't panic or succumb to hopelessness. Instead, you remind yourself that Allah has a plan that you cannot yet see. You act with sincerity, and then you let go of outcomes, knowing that whatever He decrees is for your ultimate good, whether it is immediately visible or not. Tawakkul transforms waiting into worship, trials into opportunities for growth, and uncertainty into spiritual serenity. It restores the heart because it reminds us that while we cannot control everything, Allah's wisdom is infinite, His timing is perfect, and His love is always closer than our own breaths. Sabr, or patience, is one of the most profound gifts a believer can cultivate, yet it is often misunderstood. Many think Sabr means silently enduring pain or suppressing emotions, but in reality, Sabr is much deeper. It is an active, conscious surrender to the will of Allah while navigating the storms of life. It is feeling the heartbreak, the disappointment, and the anxiety, yet choosing to trust in Allah's wisdom rather than giving in to despair. Sabr is the bridge between human weakness and divine strength, the pathway through which hearts are purified and souls are refined. The Prophet taught us that sabr is half of faith and that enduring trials with patience elevates the believer's status in the eyes of Allah. It is not easy to watch what you desire slip from your hands, to wait when everything inside you is urging for immediate results, or to forgive when your heart aches from betrayal. Yet this is precisely when sabr becomes transformative. It reshapes your inner world, softens the hardness caused by pain, and strengthens the heart to withstand future trials. Every moment of restraint, every tear shed in quiet surrender, every prayer whispered in hope becomes a testimony of your trust in Allah. Sabr also teaches the believer to distinguish between what is within their control and what belongs to Allah alone. It is a reminder that human effort must be paired with divine reliance. When your heart aches, Sabr allows you to process that pain without letting it consume your spirit. When delays test your patience, Sabr becomes the gentle voice reminding you that Allah's timing is perfect and that every hardship carries a seed of growth, healing, and mercy. In essence, Sabr is not passive suffering. It is an active form of worship. It is standing firm when the world shakes you, loving Allah even when your heart feels heavy, and trusting that the pain you endure is shaping you for something far greater than what you can see. Through Sabr, the believer's heart remains anchored, resilient, and ever turning toward the one who never abandons. Every hardship, delay, and heartbreak that touches a believer's life is part of Allah's divine decree or qadr. Often, when the heart feels heavy or life seems unfair, we struggle to understand why certain events occur. Why did this happen to me? Why must I endure this pain? But the truth is, qadr is not meant to punish, it is meant to shape, purify, and guide the heart toward its true purpose. Every trial is a thread in the tapestry of your life, woven with infinite wisdom that our limited perception cannot fully grasp. What may feel like suffering today could be the very thing that protects you from a greater harm or prepares you for a blessing beyond imagination. The heart struggles most when it forgets that nothing occurs without the knowledge of Allah. Every loss, every delay, every disappointment is intentional in the sense that it is part of a plan designed by the most merciful. The Prophet taught us that a believer's heart is never truly broken without Allah allowing it, and that each hardship contains a hidden mercy. The pain you feel is not wasted. It is refining your patience, humility, and reliance on Him. The moment we surrender to qadr, we begin to see life not as a series of random events, but as a divine journey with purpose and meaning. Understanding qadr transforms waiting into worship. When a loved one leaves, when a dream seems unreachable, when life feels uncertain, the believer who embraces qadr does not despair. Instead, they trust that Allah's plan is perfect, that He is shaping their heart through the experience, and that every heartbreak carries a lesson in resilience, forgiveness, or deeper spiritual insight. Accepting qadr does not mean passivity. It means actively living with trust, hope, and unwavering faith, knowing that Allah's wisdom is infinitely greater than our own. In this surrender, the heart finds solace, and even in pain, it begins to heal. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful healers of the heart, yet it is often misunderstood as a favor we do for others. In reality, forgiveness is first and foremost a gift to the self. Holding on to anger, resentment, or grudges acts like poison, slowly eroding the peace and light within the heart. Every unresolved conflict, every hurt that lingers, creates a barrier between you and the tranquility that Allah intends for your soul. The heart was designed to be soft, compassionate, and receptive to divine mercy, but when it harbors bitterness, it becomes heavy, restless, and spiritually stagnant. Forgiveness, then, is a way to cleanse the heart and restore its natural state of receptivity to Allah's guidance and love. Allah teaches us in the Quran that those who restrain their anger and forgive others will be rewarded immensely. Forgiveness is not weakness, nor does it mean condoning wrongdoing. It is an act of strength and conscious choice, a recognition that only Allah is the ultimate judge and that clinging to resentment only harms your own soul. The Prophet exemplified this in his life, forgiving those who wronged him, often in ways that seemed impossible for the human heart. Through forgiveness, he demonstrated that the soul's freedom depends not on the actions of others, but on one's own willingness to release the weight of pain. Practically, forgiving others brings immediate relief to the heart. It allows you to let go of anger that clouds your mind, to move forward without carrying emotional baggage, and to reconnect with the remembrance of Allah. When you forgive, you create space for mercy, love, and inner peace to flourish. The heart becomes lighter, more patient, and more attuned to spiritual growth. In essence, forgiveness heals not only relationships, but the very core of the believer's being, reminding the soul that true peace comes from surrendering pain to Allah and allowing His mercy to fill the emptiness within. True spiritual growth begins not when life is perfect, but when the heart turns sincerely to Allah, recognizing its own need for Him. Many hearts wait for the world to align, for circumstances to be favorable, or for people to change before they seek Allah wholeheartedly. Yet, this is the very trap that prevents transformation. Growth starts the moment you accept that your strength alone is insufficient, that your understanding is limited, and that your soul longs for the one who created it. The heart's journey back to Allah is not dependent on ease, comfort, or success. Awakened by awareness of need, humility, and the desire for closeness to Him. When a believer returns to Allah in this state, every act of worship, every prayer, and every remembrance becomes infused with sincerity and depth. The heart softens, walls built by pride, hurt, or negligence crumble, and the soul becomes receptive to divine guidance. This return is not always marked by grand gestures. Often it is quiet, personal, and internal. It may be a whispered prayer in the night, tears shed in secret, or a moment of reflection where you finally acknowledge your reliance on Allah alone. Such moments, though subtle, carry immense spiritual weight and signal the beginning of profound growth. Moreover, returning to Allah in recognition of your dependence reshapes your perspective on life's trials. You start to see hardships not as punishments, but as opportunities for purification and closeness to Him. Your heart learns to trust His wisdom, embrace patience, and find contentment even amid challenges. The soul begins to heal from past wounds, sins lose their grip, and peace starts to replace restlessness. True growth, therefore, is less about achieving perfection in the worldly sense and more about aligning the heart with its Creator. It begins when you realize that Allah is the ultimate source of comfort, guidance, and fulfillment, and that every step toward Him, however small, is a step toward a heart that is whole, soft, and illuminated by Iman.